In 1859, it was decided that a series of forts would be built to defend the naval base at Portsmouth from inland attack. Who was the enemy that Britain was preparing to defend itself against? Well, of course, the French. This is Fort Nelson, one of the forts built on Portsdown Hill to defend Portsmouth. It was completed in 1871 and named after the monument to Nelson which it was built next to. Fort Nelson has views of the surrounding area for miles. It could see any approaching armies long before there would be of any threat to the fort itself. But this fort was not just built to spot the approaching enemy, it was built to destroy them. Fort Nelson's offensive armament is impressive. It consists of 64-pounder rifled muzzle-loading guns, as well as 7-inch rifled breech-loading guns. Fort Nelson's defences, however, are even more impressive. It was built into the hill, so siege guns couldn't be used to break down its walls. The fort had a dry moat surrounding it, which any attacking enemies would have to descend into before reaching the fort. In these dry moats would be where the real slaughter of any attackers would begin. The main defence of the walls came from 3 campaniers and the redan to the rear of the fort. Inside the campaniers would be soldiers who would fire through slots in the walls, and these 32-pounder breech-loading guns which would fire along the length of the walls, cutting down any attackers as they entered the moat. From on top of the campaniers, soldiers would stand on these firing steps and fire down upon the enemy. If the enemy were able to get up on top of the campaniers, then the soldiers would fall back to these passageways and fire through these firing slots. The fort was also equipped with batteries of 13-inch mortars which were set down into the side of the fort itself. All of the ammunition was supplied from the magazine. The magazine is hidden down in the depths of the fort itself. Down here, gunpowder and shot would be stored in their own separate rooms. They would be stacked against the walls, and anyone who wanted to enter would have to change in this room, so they would not have clothing that would cause a spark and ignite the gunpowder. This bypass tunnel was used by troops on their way to the campanier. These barracks are set against the back of the fort and are protected by the redan, which, like the campaniers, was built to fire down the lengths of the rear of the wall. The stables were built to the side of the barracks. During the First World War, Fort Nelson was used as a transit and training camp for soldiers going to war. During the Second World War, it was used as an ammunition depot for supplying local anti-aircraft batteries. On the night of the 9th of January 1941, Fort Nelson was commended for supplying extra ammunition despite being under heavy fire and having its own anti-aircraft outside of its perimeter. It was abandoned after the war and bought in 1988 by Hampshire County Council. To this day, it is now the home of the Royal Armouries Museum. It houses hundreds of pieces of artillery and guns. The museum shows how soldiers would live while stationed at Fort Nelson. It houses a collection of cannons from many different periods of history, naval guns, artillery from different countries and centuries, including some of the strangest looking guns in history. It currently has the largest surviving gun in the world, a British 18-inch railway howitzer. It has anti-tank guns, anti-aircraft guns, pieces of the Iraq supergun, and even a sexton. The guns here are rare and come from many different nations and eras. The collection at Fort Nelson is ever growing. Each new year changes are made that improve the experience for visitors. Fort Nelson will continue on and bring knowledge and enjoyment for generations of people to come.